Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Survivor Global for Survivor 47. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here to talk about episode 9, I think we're at. This was a crazy episode, a lot of chaos. It was a very long challenge, and then there was a lot of strategy, so we'll probably get into a lot of the latter. But to talk about that, I have an incredible guest, a winner, a reigning champion, Australian Survivor. He's gotten on the US Survivor train recently. He needs to get more on. I haven't heard the updates on his binge, but I'll be threatening and pressuring him through this podcast, no doubt. But it's the great Feras Basal. Feras, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Shannon. I'm always excited doing these podcasts, and obviously you're always keeping me in check with Survivor US. I feel like at this point you're like my Survivor US teacher, and I just have to constantly be doing my homework. And this season has been absolutely incredible. So I'm happy to be chatting all things Survivor 47.
Well, I feel like I'm a bad teacher, and I don't know if it's just that you're a bad student or am I a bad teacher? Whose fault is it? Because I feel like you haven't been binging the things I told you to binge.
No.
You haven't been doing your homework.
I haven't. I've been a horrible student.
So bad. Very,
I know.
F's all around. Not good.
Yeah, big F's all around, but I'm up to date with Survivor 47, and to me, that's all that matters at the moment.
Yes. Thank you for coming onto this podcast up to date with the season. We appreciate that. That was the bare minimum. That was the least that we required for you to be here today. But then in the off season, Feras, when are you gonna watch Survivor Korean?
You're right. You're so right. Like, I feel like at this point there just needs to be an event where all the fans just sit me down in front of a TV and we just watch a whole season together.
Yeah.
So who knows? Maybe that could be a thing.
I've said there is the internet. And as you said, that it's hard for you to binge because you're ADHD and you're always distracted.
Horrible.
Live stream it. That's the online fan event. We could do that every day.
You know what? I might. Once I do clear my schedule a bit in like a week or two, I think I genuinely might just start a live session on Twitter by myself and just see who else wants to join me. I don't care. I don't care if I'm watching by myself. I'll do it. You can join me.
I don't want to be having this conversation with you on a podcast every 6 months. Like, I don't want to come back here in 2025.
Yeah.
Feras, I believe in you. I believe you can do it.
You know what? Hold me responsible.
If you were on Australia versus the world, you would have needed to research and to watch it and to watch Kirby on it, you're going to need to research some people and it's relevant. But I blame production. I blame Australian Survivor production for not putting you on the season, which is insane, by the way. Just completely insane, just separate to that. And it meant that you didn't binge it. So really they're at fault, but you have a little part to play in it.
Okay, we can all blame them. Let's just blame them. As long as it's not me, we can blame them.
It is genuinely, I'll just say it now, it's bizarre that you're not on Australia versus the world. I'm just going to say.
Honestly, it was either going to be me or Kirby. That's how I see it. And it's everybody wants to see Kirby go at it. So by all means, go sis. She has my support. I'm a bit sad I didn't get to play with her again because we all know how that sort of worked out, which is always fun. But she has my full support.
That you won.
That'll be exciting.
It was fun that you beat her. But it would have been great to have you both. As if they haven't done, big duos before. We know the three we know are Kirby, George, and Shawnee. George and Shawnee are that duo, or it went poorly at a point, but there's that connection there, there's that inbuilt relationship. You would have thought.
You never know what could happen in the future, but honestly, at this point, I'm just excited to see all of my peers take on the world. So that'll be very exciting to watch.
Yeah. Well, Feras, other than not watching enough Survivor, how have you been? What's been happening with you?
I've been good. It's been honestly a crazy past couple of months. I've just honestly been busy in my own worlds, in my own work, buried in the sand, doing as much as I possibly can, and from time to time talking shit on Twitter. So that's always lovely. But yeah, I think next year is going to be a huge year. So just keep an eye out. There's a lot going on. And yeah, excited for what's to come.
Yeah. Well, you caught up for this today.
Yes.
And how are you feeling about the season? Because you watched 46, you watched this, and you were telling me before we recorded that they're night and day for you.
They are. Look, because I don't have many seasons to compare 47 to, I could only just compare it to last season. And I love this season. I'm obsessed. You know what? I was watching the latest episode and I was looking at the entire cast and I was like, I love every single person in this cast. They are incredible. They've brought some sort of value to the show as viewers. So I've been obsessed with this season. A lot of it does have like trickles of Titans versus Rebels in it, and some challenges or like some moments that I could name. So it sort of gives me a bit of nostalgia, but it's a different season. I'm enjoying every bit of it. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting to compare it to Titans v Rebels because I feel like both were fluid, but in kind of a different way. I mean, I feel like Titans v Rebels had these intense relationship dynamics, positive and negative, or sometimes both, like you and Kirby, right? So, you know, these kind of extremes of relationships that would kind of coalesce into different groups, as we said, like different even groups every time. Whereas I was talking about this with Peter, like this season, I feel like no relationships are so deeply positive and negative. Like there's obviously some bonds and there's, you know, some vendettas. We saw them come out in this episode even, but I feel like everyone's pretty workable with each other. So there's more of that kind of like passive relationships that then coalesce into kind of different groups. So it's like without the extremes of Titans v Rebels that people would kind of use to go into different groups, this is more just like, if this is making any sense, even across the surface, and then the groups kind of shore up or relationships kind of manifest at that time without it being so extreme. Did any of that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, which does make it a bit more confusing in a way, since there's no like extreme love relationship. So when you're literally going to tribal council, like when I was watching that last episode, I was like, oh, I have no idea what's happening, like genuinely. So the fact that there's no highs, like the highs in Titans versus Rebels with the alliances and the strength of alliances, it makes things so much more interesting and chaotic and genuinely unpredictable. So I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the last episode seemed confusing, but actually was told really well. And especially on the second viewing, if you watch it with this lens, like I think we were given the soul plan really clearly. Like we saw literally the building blocks, and I think like very, very clearly of like Genevieve coming up with it and going to each person and then like deciding to tell Rachel and seeing what Rachel would do with Sam. And then Rachel told Sam, and then we saw like Sam blow it up. We saw that all really clearly. Where it gets confusing is then Sam pushes back on like, maybe a Tuku plan, maybe Sue. Teeny's like maybe Carl, because Teeny got, you know, like gotta love Teeny. Teeny at any point would be like, what if we do the man instead of the woman? And it largely doesn't work out, but Teeny will always vouch for it. And I appreciate that sentiment. It has not worked to this point. I mean, to go as a man, but like Sue was still the target between them. Like Teeny will not get that. But then what happens with that is it gets confusing, because it's like, is it Soul or is it this Tuku plan? And if it's Tuku, is it Sue or Kyle? But what it was, and if you rewatch with this lens, like it was always Soul. And they talking about that at Tribal Council, you know, like basically what's real versus what's noise, and that was all noise. And we saw the Soul plan. There was no reason to renege on it, even when, you know, Sam has told Soul, even when it's being blown up. And I'm glad for Genevieve that she didn't renege on it, because I'm sure it was scary, but you just going blindside Soul, which they did, you know, get him into a new false sense of security. Because every single time that they talk about the Tuku plan, it's to the people who are at that point on the out, Sam or Teeny or Soul. At Tribal Council, whenever anyone's like, is it Sue or Kyle? It's to one of those people, and it's noise, and it's, you know, the decoy, and the Soul plan is happening and always was. And at a point, you know, everyone becomes aware of it and it becomes unanimous. And I think that's what it is. And it's not as confusing when you kind of separate what's noise for what's real. And I think that they told a chaotic, like literally something actually chaotic, very well. But it was confusing because it was a lot in the moment, as I was describing.
I think like also the editing of this season, with how they've chosen certain scenes and shots and things like that, I'm absolutely loving. Like you can see there's a huge improvement from what I saw, at least, to this season. It's been they are telling the story the right way, and I'm loving every bit of it. So couldn't agree with you more in that sense. Yeah.
They're relying a lot on like the jump cut edits, which I love. Some people might say it's an over reliance, but I like any single time it's like, oh, Sue's like to Kyle, are they saying my name? He's like, no, cut to, we should do Sue. They do a lot of the ironic jump cut, but I love that. Like that's a humor that really works for me. So like they can keep doing that type of thing, and I think that they told it well. I mean, obviously, I wasn't enjoying the first half of the episode because, you know, the very long challenge, Feras, you may not know because you've seen it twice, but it's a staple of the new era for some reason, and I don't enjoy it. It's basically just like several, but like 4 or 5 challenges in one, and I don't enjoy that. This is how I feel. I felt like it was an episode of 2 halves, and I literally went to a wedding in the middle of it. So I wanted to finish the episode before I went to the wedding, but I got through the very long challenge, and I was at the burping scene, and then I had to go spend 9 hours at a wedding, and I was like, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, 4 people might lose votes, because when they did this in 45, like it was all, there was all like individual votes, like individual challenges. They all could have lost their vote, 4 of 10. And I was like, oh my God, you know, another 6-person voting configuration. And like the challenge had been so long, and I was like in a bad mood. But then I came back and only 1 lost their vote, and it was public, and I felt better about that. And then I thought the second half was great. So literally I went to a wedding in the middle, and I felt like I was very low in the beginning, very high on the end. So yeah,
Love that.
I didn't expect to come back and really enjoy it. But let's talk about, I think, the main thing about this episode, the main question, and we're going to get into everyone's decisions. Genevieve. It's all about Genevieve, right? The main instigator of everything. And I feel like there's been so much discussion around, is this good for Genevieve? I've heard brilliant, love it, queen, best player of the new era. I've heard game losing move. Stephen on No One All says game losing move. He and Owen we're both pretty low on it. I think we'll talk through the cons and pros. You're a big game player, so looking at this, are you high or low? Are you first half of the episode or second half of the episode on Genevieve's move?
You see, in a cast like this, it's kind of hard to be like, that was a great move or a bad move, because the relationships are getting quite complex. But if I were to just sum it down very simply, Sol was kind of in a corner. Like it was in a corner. Like I don't understand, like why the way I see it is there are better options. That's okay. At that point of the game, there were definitely, was he the best option? No, I don't think he was the best option. Was it a bad move? I don't think it was a bad move either. The way I see it is she's learned so much from the dynamics just from that episode, from that scrambling, from that tribal, from everything. Although people might see that, okay, she might have voted out someone that could have been in her corner, she has gained so much more information from this process. And I think that's what a lot of people miss. So on the surface of it, yes, I don't think she there could have been someone way better for her to vote out. Beneath the surface, did she gain a lot from it? I think she did. I think she gained a crap load of info, a crap load of info about dynamics and where people lie and how people lie to her. And I think she's a very intelligent woman. So she's that type that can grab all that information and it be so much more valuable than just another vote in her corner. So didn't really give you an answer.
Who would you see as a better option for her?
Someone that would have brought absolutely no value to her. Who would bring no value to someone like Genevieve? Honestly, probably someone like Kyle would have been a better move to her, right? To Genevieve.
Yes, Kyle is bringing not a lot, but also Kyle is such an easy consensus vote. Even his own allies want to vote him out, and we can talk about that. So it's kind of like, I don't see that as a benefit of her. I see that maybe as a benefit to the group, but like, I don't know that that's a specific benefit to her. That's one of the reasons I would do something like this, because I feel like it's going to be very easy for someone at some point, several rounds down, not several again, but like a couple of rounds down the road to be like, well, or just do Kyle. Is that actually actively benefiting Genevieve individually, or does everyone want to get rid of Kyle at a point? So I think for me, like when I look at, there's a lot of, you know, cons and pros, and we've gotten comparisons of Genevieve to Kirby, and I'd love to get your take on that. Because she is a big game player. But I feel like to compare it, for me, when I was thinking about the comparison to Kirby, like Genevieve, has a great social game. She's kind of, the way that she can corral people is so impressive. That, like, all of that, I was so impressed with Kirby, and they both impress and scare me. So I think that is a similarity. But I think with Kirby, she was using that power for moves that I just so vehemently disagreed with, especially early on. You know, throwing the votes and even coming for you. And I felt like that I was like so actively not on board. And I think those moves she could recover better than most, but I still think they like badly affected her. And you guys were talking about the thrown votes like weeks down the track. And I was very against it. Whereas with Genevieve, when I see it with like the Kishan move, which was big, and then this move, like I'm at least on the fence, if not pro. So it's like the big kind of move mentality with things I'm more like, you know, accepting and more understanding. And with this move, like at first I was like, ooh, too much. Sol's too close to you. It's such a big move. Like all the cons that everyone has said, like Sol was an ally for her. He said in exits he wanted a Lavo final 3. He also said they weren't ride or die. I feel like we don't really know how that would have gone, but that's what he's saying. I feel like it leaves her a little bit floating. It kind of like untethers this like strong Lavo position that she had. Cuts off the relationship with Teeny, as she points out, pokes her head out as a threat. Those are the major cons. And also what, I really hated her doing it as like revenge for Rome, because what is that? That's not anything. Sol in the exit thought that wasn't really the reason. Those are my like main cons. But then I had like a really long list of pros. And like one of the main things is like, so as we're saying, like what does Kyle really achieve? Whereas someone like Sol was a big threat, came into this episode leading the Chizzy. She's clocking all the things we're clocking about him. He has relationships. And now you might say, how good could those relationships be? He goes in a unanimous vote. She does a lot of work to get that unanimous vote happening. If he gets a little further with that, then he shores up those relationships and he's a real contender against her, or to even have more power than her, even if, she's a factor in his plans, it's still his plans. So I think the work she did specifically with someone like Sue, who Sol is saying in X interviews he was really close with. She went and was like, he's throwing out Gabe, like really put it on him when it had been a lot of Sol and Teeny. She did a lot of work to fracture relationships who were then coming after Sol, taking out a really big threat like Sol, who we see as like, a huge, I've seen as a really huge player in the game. I also think from a position standpoint, and this is the most important thing for me with Genevieve, yes, it untethers her from her current position, but Genevieve will rebuild and is rebuilding right now, is doing stuff like that with Tuku, who she seems to really want to work with. And the thing with Genevieve for me, and this is the thing I come back with, is her bandwidth for how big she can play is bigger than most because she will recover better. Like the Kishan move, which I went back and forth with, for several weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, where I said, now I'm hearing myself say several a lot, but I went back for 2 or 3 weeks being like, was this a good move? And I came eventually around to the fact that I didn't like the Kishan move. I thought she invested a lot in Rome, who immediately needed to go. I was like, this actually couldn't go much worse. And where did it leave Genevieve on a move that couldn't go worse? Still pulling the strings here today, right? So it's like, even if this move pans out not in her best interest, I bet she can recover the best. I think she can take the bull by the horns more than most and has the bandwidth to play a bigger game and recover really, really well and continue to rebuild her position into something that worked for her. And I see her doing it now with the Tukus as an example. So for me, let her play big. Let her add to the jury resume. When someone like Kyle's like, Genevieve's not a thinker, there will be no doubt about it if she gets to the final tribal council that she's a thinker and that she's great. Let her take the agency. Let her take out threats. Let her play in this big way if she wants to and take out threats and recover very, very well. And I think that's something Genevieve can and do and has done because she's like a special player like that. And that's why I give her the leeway to do that.
I think what it does come down to is everyone's constantly saying, was this move a good move for Genevieve? Yes or no. But what we're not understanding is, was it a good move for Genevieve's style of playing? That's what it is. So I think, again, on the surface, I don't think it's ever a good move to just vote out someone that's in your side. We all agree with that. But because
you did it.
My season doesn't count. That's a very weird season.
Everything was weird. Yes.
We never use my season as like, evidence for anything. But yeah, anyways, I think that Genevieve is that type that can afford to do something like that and come out stronger in the end because she is such a proactive player. And I think that's what makes a great player, a calculated and proactive player. So I can guarantee you, before she even came up with this plan of Sol, that she considered the fact that she needs to build relationships with others before throwing out Sol's name, just in case he does get out and does leave her untethered. So she's that type that would have invested in relationships before even suggesting that move. So I think for a player like Genevieve, you're right. I think she can recover. She can recover very easily. And I think it's because she's such a proactive and calculated player. So in general, is this like the greatest move of all time? No. Could it be great for a player like Genevieve or like a player like Kirby that can recover from things after voting someone out or blindsiding someone? Yes, she's that type of player and she's just that player. So I love it.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Kishan move and that it genuinely, like from an objective perspective, couldn't have gone worse. and
There
she
you go.
still is here pulling all the strings. It just shows the power that she has to be able to take out a huge threat in Seoul. And as she says, someone whose name wasn't really being said. So as she's saying, like a sneaky threat, and still keeping those buffers in front of her, like the Sams, like the Carls, like the
Yeah.
Gabes that everyone kind of has in their head anyway, but actually taking out someone who I think was more of a threat to her. Yes, he wants to possibly stay with Genevieve, but like, again, that as a powerful player will be his decision, and why leave it in his hands? He's also
100%.
saying in other X interviews they weren't ride or die. I wouldn't want to be relying on that. So
Yep.
she puts it into her own hands. She continues to do that. And I know that I'm possibly somewhat biased and that I love when players can take their own agency. But I do enjoy that, because I think that it's very controlled, and it's the best way to have the impact on your own game. And she's the one who can afford to do that, because she will build in that moment. And I think that she as well, she seems to really want to work with the Tukus. I know Sam could have been an option, but again, like, who does it really benefit? So in terms of like a Carl or a Sam, I don't see it as hugely beneficial to her. I think leaving in the Tukus is fine, because if the Tukus were a block of 4 for real, I would say that this is untenable, because you don't want to leave. You're going into 9, leaving them as a 4. We're getting very, very dicey. But the fact that the Tukus are saying to us, especially Sue, she wants to come for Carl. Caroline, happy to come for Carl, sees Carl as like a big immunity threat, which we can talk about as well. They're not a 4. So I see her building in the moment with Rachel, with the Tukus, with Andy. She's building in. So it's like, lose 1 connection, make 3, and take out a huge threat. Like I started scared. I started being like, I don't love it. It just felt too soon. It felt too early. It felt way too audacious. And it is all those things. But I think Genevieve, if anyone, can do that. And I just think the more I think about it, the more I like the move. And obviously, like, the execution is incredible. Like, obviously, the fact that she's pulling the strings is amazing. But yeah, even on doing it, I'm like, I back it. I back the power that she has.
But I think then the biggest thing that will come out of this is she literally got everyone voting the way she wants. Gabe is literally saying, this is your move, Genevieve. The biggest issue after this is threat levels. How is she going to manage her threats?
Yes, then that's a big consideration, especially in the new era, where that's a big thing. Is like, it's often like they're the biggest threat, so you take them out. So now you're the biggest threat, so you get taken out. And that is a big thing for Genevieve. And I think a lot of it will be, how much are other threats, can they be pushed, like a Kyle, Sam, Gabe, these like big guys, and then how much will those relationships help her? Because we saw with Sol, the relationships did not help him. Like, people did not come back for him. So yeah, if you were Genevieve, what would be kind of the way to mitigate that for you?
If I were Genevieve, I would have a close eye. See, the thing with she's in such an odd position at the moment, because honestly, the way I see it is, if her name doesn't get called out in the next episode, I'm going to think everybody is wild on that tribe, like, and absolutely blind. Like, how much more of a threat do you need than that? Everyone saw the plan happening. Everyone saw Genevieve, like, everyone knows it's Genevieve's plan. The whole tribe voted her way. I'm sorry. At what point is she not a threat? Like, if her name doesn't get like thrown out at least in the next episode, then she is doing absolutely something incredible that nobody understands. Or the tribe is just not saying she's that much of a threat. So she's got a lot of groundwork to do. And for me, it would be invest in Sue. Sue and Caroline are her 2 girls. I think those are the 2 that she needs to invest in, and the rest will slowly start following, like she did. Like she spoke to 1 or 2 people, and then people started. Like, she just has that agency in the game. So it's just a matter of how she communicates it, and how she won't minimize her threat level. That's not the way to do it, because you can't minimize threat level like that. She needs to maximize other people's threat levels. That's what she needs to focus on the next couple episodes.
Yes, I do think that there are those names there. And I do think, like, if you look at the meta of the new era, has any new era winner been so out in front individually for us, even as viewers, at this point in the game? Like, no. Like, even like, I mean, this is, like someone like D was in a group and then kind of was doing her own individual stuff later. And everyone else, like, was kind of hiding and then taking out the Genevieves, who will be the eventual Chizzy winner, but not necessarily the winner of the season. And I think that the reason that I can back this, and I don't think Genevieve's going to win. I think from an edit perspective, Genevieve will lose at Fire. Genevieve said in the preseason that she's played Baldur's Gate instead of practicing Fire. And I said in the preseason, this is a sparkly person, but the Fire concerned me. And that's my prediction for Genevieve. I think she will lose at Fire, but I think she'll get to that point, and I think that's good enough. How can she get to that point when she's such a big threat in my mind? Because I think that's what we're seeing with her level of social game, social recovery, and possibly positioning. But yeah, she should be the next head to be chopped off because she poked her head out. But I think that her game is in making those moves and managing that threat level. And like that's if she fails on that, that'll be the part of her game that she fails on. It's all contingent. This big game of play style is contingent on her maintaining that. And if she fails on that, then that will be the thing I think that we look at as the thing that she did wrong. But currently she's been doing it really well. And if she can continue on that, then she's got runway. And I back her on that because that's what I've seen so far. So that's where I'm at with her.
I'm with you. Loving Genevieve so far. Love it.
So many interesting decisions in this episode, and that's why I really enjoyed the second half. Let's talk through some of them. For Genevieve, again, she tells Rachel, knowing Rachel could tell Sam. Again, could this have gone worse for Genevieve? Much like the Kishon move kind of devolves in every way and she recovers. I have to back that Genevieve tells Rachel, knowing she could tell Sam, not wanting her to tell Sam. Genevieve tells Sam, and Sam blows up. And where does it leave this? With Sol going back to Genevieve to be like, what are we doing about the situation? She's back there. Yeah, and Teeny's like, but where are the votes? And we can talk about it. It's actually really chilling hearing Sol talk about it in the X interviews that like, you know that some people that you're talking to are probably against you, right? Like, where's this majority coming from? And that to me is like a kind of a horror movie. It's like, who are we talking to? But they never seem to suspect Genevieve. That's so well done. All the information comes back to Genevieve, who's able to just barrel through with the plan. And again, it couldn't have gone worse. But should she have risked it? How do you feel about telling Rachel about this plan, which is then about to implode?
Oh, yeah, it's a hard one because, again, like the whole no vote situation throws a spanner in the works. Should she have risked like going through all of that? Not to the extent that she did. Okay, I feel like there was way too many pieces involved that didn't really need to be involved. I think she may have gotten slightly excited with the plan. But yeah, a lot of these people didn't need to know the plan. They didn't
know. No one needed to know. And I want to talk about this, about who are the numbers, because they say like if Caroline comes back without a vote, we're going to need another number. Actually not true. The tricky math here and the plurality vote that I'm going to get to, I don't know if they want to rely on this, but it's a 9-person vote, right? So at the time when the Jenga people come back from that journey, there's the Tuku 3 and Genevieve, that's 4. But at that point, everyone else is on a Sam vote. So say Teeny, Sol, Rachel, and Andy are voting for Sam because that's been like the thing. And Sam, as he says to Sol, is voting Kyle. That's a 4-4-1. That would have been Sam, the Sol on the revote. They don't revote this time. So on the revote, then the Tuku 3 and Genevieve have their 4 votes. They win on a 4-3. So so therefore, at the point where they're against a pretty divided group at that point, you know, Sam and Teeny's been pitching Sam. Sam's the target. That 4 actually has the power. Jen still goes to Andy. I think you probably want the numbers, but like still goes to Rachel. But even when we talk about the Andy and Rachel decisions, I feel like they're kind of being brought in on like an overwhelming like tsunami of a majority that is like the Tuku 3 and Genevieve at that point are very, very hard to break, even as a minority of 9, because they're against like a pretty fractured group in the other 5.
I feel like so that plurality vote would have worked if Genevieve was aware of where Sam was voting.
Well, Sam can't vote for himself. So as long as some people on the other side are voting for Sam, your 4 will win out. Because Sam's going to have to vote for, say, a Kyle or whatever.
But she knew the others were voting for Sam.
So if some people, at least, she thinks the other 4 are voting for Sam. But if at least like Teeny and Sol are voting for Sam, then that 5 will never make a block that's bigger than your 4 of 9 on the revote.
It's very risky with such a large group of people. But yeah, it could have been done.
I mean, the 4-3-2 at 9 plurality is like one of my favorites. Some great final 9 plurality votes you're going to get to in the binge what some of the people were talking about. But I mean, I'm not saying that you're relying on that. I'm just saying that when you're going to like an Andy and especially a Rachel, like they're being brought onto a plan that's like very much in motion. Like if you're Andy, is Andy the swing? Like Andy would either have to go with it, which he does, and I think he should, but like, or you're going back to everyone else and being like, no, we 5 need to be on a Tuku. Like you actually have to get something going. You're not actually a swing between 2 groups at that point. So I just think people are being brought more onto the power structure of Genevieve leading the Tukus with the Tukus at that point. That's my kind of point on the plurality. And I also just want to talk about plurality votes because I'm predictable.
I was watching the episode and then I saw that you mentioned the plurality votes. I'm like, oh, Shannon's gonna love this one. She loves her plurality.
I'll take it to a plurality if I want to. But anyway, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so about bringing on the Rachels the Andys as an example. So you think he got a little bit too much? I mean, I feel like she actively brought on Andy and Rachel. Sam and Teeny like heard something in the tribal scramble. Like that wasn't like intentional. But like the intentional move was bring on Andy and then Rachel. So where do you stand with like how she's building the blocks of this move?
Andy would have been, I don't know, I feel like Andy's so shaky at the moment. Like, I just feel like it's a lot to put in. I'm loving Andy, by the way. I'm adoring Andy, but I don't know. I just feel like it worked, but it was just so risky for her. Like, there's just too many people involved, and there's in terms of the amount of people that are left. The way I see it is, the less numbers, the more ballsy we can be with our moves, because you sort of have more agency in the game in terms of your alliance members. But this, like, who's her actual alliance member? She's going after Saul, and she has all these random people that she's met for a couple of days, and she's pulling off this insane plan, which I think, again, is so risky, but it works. So not much to say about her.
That's a Genevieve game. Like she's building the blocks as she's doing it. By the way, you love Andy. Do you know how Andy feels about you?
How does he feel about me?
He
Oh no,
hates
he
you.
told me he wants to play a Feras game, but that's
he said it in his interview. He said, "Yeah, I've got it. If I can play a Feras game, oh my god, I would live for that. I would love that." Transporting that to the US meta might be a bit difficult, but he's an absolute star. That's what he
He's
said.
doing the hair flick, so it's working.
With the hair flip, and that is that the only part of the Feras game we felt like Andy has brought so far. Where else do we see the Feras game and what Andy's doing? He's a great narrator.
He's a smiling assassin that he's going to be.
He did, exactly. Andy told me when he came back, he messaged me and he said that he had been listening to the deep dives a lot in the pregame. So that was what was in his head.
You can so you know what I will say. There is a glimpse. There is a glimpse for a second where him and Rachel, like they never work together, and all of a sudden he's like, let's work together, let's do it. Like, I don't care. Like we stuffed each other over, let's just do it. So his openness, incredible. His ability to use things other than his words to gain trust, like his shot in the dark at one point, he's doing it. He's getting creative with the way he's building trust rather than just speaking it. So I'm loving Andy's really interesting game.
And Rachel's another fan of International Survivor. I wonder if they spoke about Titans v Rebels on the beach. They probably did. Can you imagine if
at that point, I was actually
they when they were in the pregame, they were listening to the deep dives. So they just finished it. Literally just finished Titans v Rebels when they went out.
So when would they have filmed it? Like only
they filmed it like April. Or April.
Yeah. Oh my god. I didn't realize they filmed it so soon to be aired.
Because they do 2 at the same time. So this was the first one. And then they also filmed 48 for next year.
Yeah, wow.
But imagine if you and Kirby had one of your many conversations about we should work together, and then they did like a flashback to your whole relationship, but it took 40 minutes. Like that's the whole episode at that point. It's like you guys are narrating what has happened. Yeah, it's been a lot. It's too much to do that. But yeah, I'm really interested in like kind of Andy and Rachel's position, because I like for both of them that they were brought in, that they didn't necessarily numerically need to be brought in, especially Rachel at the point where she has a little majority with Andy. I will say, like, for Andy, I'm okay kind of if he had the power, and again, I think he's kind of being brought into a plan he has to go with, but like if he had the power, even like later on, maybe you say it's more of a swing between this like Tuku plan, but Rachel never even seemed to like really be brought in on the Tuku plan until a bit later. So it was all contingent of Genevieve. Like they're going to Andy saying it'll be Teeny, Sam, Sol, Andy at first, and Genevieve. So he knows that's not a plan. So again, like is Andy really a swing in these positions? Very minorly, if ever, I think. But I still think being brought on is good. I think staying with Genevieve is good. I think being adaptable, as he said, is good.
He's gaining confidence as well. And he's gaining a lot of confidence in his game, which is what I'm loving. I'm loving this whole transformation of Andy. It's so much fun to watch. And I genuinely think he's got the right head on him. He's got the right ideas all the time. I don't think I could fault Andy's ideas. The way he executes them and communicates them with certain people and builds certain relationships is when he needs to sort of start stepping up. He's got everything in here. It's everything that he has intentions of is completely genius. He should be doing all the things that he's doing. It's just how he's executing it is he just needs to sort of like gather his thoughts and actually communicate it and execute it a proper way. And that's what he's struggling with. And that's what Genevieve is doing incredible of. She's executing so well. She gets an idea and she subtly executes it without it being a thing. Whereas in Andy, he's just like, I feel like he's a bit all over the place sometimes because he gets excited. But he just needs to find his feet. And I think once he finds someone that he can actually fully trust, someone just give the guy a chance, he'll do really well. So I'm excited to see Andy's arc.
Yeah, I wonder if that will be him and Rachel together. Like, I think if anyone's going to come for Genevieve, realize the threat level, and take a swipe. I mean, someone like Rachel has an idol, so has the capacity. They're both smart, super fans who are self-interested in the way that they know, to put your game first. Even with the relationships, I think someone like Sue might be a little more blinded to the kind of emotions of a relationship compared to like a Rachel and an Andy, which I don't think will, even if someone like we see with Rachel has helped her out. Again, I'm not sure how much she could have done, but I don't think that she would be blinded by that specifically. In saying that, with someone like Rachel, like if she could, I would have protected Sol if she could. I wouldn't have blown up my game to do it, and she didn't. I wouldn't play my idol. Definitely, I wouldn't have even.
Of course she could have.
What, with her idol? No, not. It's not worth that. Like she's an underdog. She might need her idol next week. Like her idol's the most important thing in the game. If she was a swing vote choosing between two groups, I would choose Sol. 100%. I would choose to keep Sol. But considering she couldn't, like I think that it is what it is. But like but Sol, did protect her in a game of, like, as we're saying, fairly passive relationships from what we see. That was at least something very tangible. If she could have, I would have, but I don't think she could have. So then it becomes so Genevieve tells Rachel, I don't mind it because building blocks, she's kind of testing Rachel. And again, even at its worst, it still comes back to her. She's got it so on lock. Rachel tells Sam. What do you think about Rachel telling Sam? That's the other part of that.
No, I'm against that. If you're on the bottom with someone that's on the same tribe as you or in the same situation of you, like a Sarah Alex situation in like Titans versus Rebels, very similar to that sense where, okay, they were both sort of, together and then now they're in a ugly spot. Choose yourself, girl. Choose yourself. Don't give Sam any other information. You're both at the bottom. Like, if anything, you should be under the assumption that, look, we're still at the bottom. It could be either of us. I'm not risking my place to give Sam more information. I don't think she should have.
Right.
But I get, at the same time, I understand that she does need to cling to some sort of ally in the game. And in that sense, it could have been Sam in that moment. But I just think she should have chosen a bit more wisely with who she shares that information with, clearly. But yeah, no, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I actually don't mind it. And I'm happy to disagree here. Because, and I'll tell you why I don't mind it. Because I'm like, well, she's trying to make the bond with Sam. He did guess. I feel like that scene was so relatable. How often have you, as like a friend, had the tea and you're like, I'll just guess, and you like get it? So he, like, at that point, I didn't think it was that bad for the reason of I'm very against what Sam did in blowing it up. Like, I think she obviously misjudged and misread Sam, but I feel like Sam shouldn't have done that. So like I back her thinking Sam shouldn't do that. And the reasons I think Sam shouldn't have done that, which should make what Rachel does okay, is because firstly, you're being brought on. Not even brought on. You're being told, don't even vote this way. Like, we don't even need your vote. Like, the toothpaste was out of the tube. Like, there was nothing Sam could do. Like we see, like, he tries to blow it up, and we can talk about what they maybe could have done. But like, whatever's happening, it is so far gone that, how is he going to save Sol here? And like, again, as we're saying, Sol's going to people thinking people must be against him. Unless he thinks it's literally Rachel and the 3 Tukus on a 4-4-1, which is something I might be considering. But everyone else probably thinks that there's a majority. So like he's going to Andy, must think that Andy has had, planning to vote against him. Someone like, we know Genevieve, like it's so far gone that I don't think that Sam could actually do anything. That's the first thing. Secondly, if anything could actually be done, the thing I thought was going to happen, I thought that Genevieve would be like, screw this. This is annoying. You've ruined my plan. And now we just are going to vote for Sam. Like, I think he actually could have put himself in the line of fire for just being annoying and like an instigator in that way. So I don't think he could have done anything. I think if he's doing anything, it's possibly blowing up in his face. And thirdly, I think like Sol going is not bad for Sam. He says he wants revenge on Lavo. The relationship with Sol seems very new and shaky at best. And if Sol goes, like, yes, like leaving he says he wants to go for Sue, which was way too audacious, like so hard to save Sol, let alone go for Sue. Who's like, she's so insulated, that would be good. Yeah, she's insulated, so it's hard. So yeah, if it's going to be like a Kyle as an example, something easier that might be a little more realistic, I would rather keep Carl in, keep the Carls, keep the Gabes. For someone like Sam, keep these big threats in front of you and get to a point where you've saved enough time to win out, be the underdog, sit at the final tribal council with a good story. That's the Sam game. He's never, to me, going to have enough relationships and connections to eclipse his threat level. And he just has to buy himself time so he can start winning challenges and get to the end as an underdog and win. And I think that Soul going actually is a good buffer and like does manage his time well. So I wouldn't have done it for those many reasons. But anyway, what did you think of Sam?
The outcome was great. I just see it as, look, if I was in Sam's position and I was next to Rachel and I knew that I'm at the bottom and Rachel's at the bottom, and Rachel just told me something where I can take out and take advantage of and be like, hey guys, Rachel's at the bottom and she's also doing this. She's the one you want, not me. Like, that could have gone any way depending on Sam's mood or how safe he felt. If he wanted to completely stuff her over, he could have done it so easily and with great reason as well.
But he's being just as annoying, if not more annoying. And he's a bigger threat from an immunity perspective, or depending on a puzzle. But like, he's been the target.
But when you're feeling at the bottom, you couldn't give a shit what you're doing. You're clinging onto everything and you're desperate. So it's good it didn't go that way. I'm happy, but I think it just comes down again to the type of person you're dealing with and pick and choose what you're saying to her. So I guess she just would have read that a lot better, and she knew Sam wouldn't really do something like that. So she trusted him with that information, and that's fair.
But she was wrong.
She was also very, very
but I think she was, but like, she was fine to be like, why would he do this? Like, there's nothing you can do. Like, I like, okay, if someone on the bottom causing chaos, fine. Breaking the majority on your terms instead of their terms is something I often vouch for. The problem is Sam didn't have the capacity to do it. You know, they couldn't do anything. We can talk about it, but like, they didn't achieve anything. He just went right back to the killer. It was like a horror movie. Well, he literally comes to Genevieve. He's like, someone's after me, and she's the killer. It's freaky.
He's right in front of him.
Yeah, he had so little power that I just feel like maybe he obviously overestimated trying to go for Sue. Like, it was just never going to happen. And I just feel like I wouldn't have even upset the apple cart, because again, like, the only thing I think that could have saved Soul was them being like, oh, Sam's not playing ball. Like, he's irritating, and he goes and
yeah.
So I just feel like there was just very little to gain for him, and possibly more to lose. So I don't blame Rachel, because I don't like that Sam did that. Those things are connected for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But I wanted to talk about, so what could Soul do at that point? Because Soul said in X interviews, you know, Sam still has the fake idol. Could they use the fake idol? Why Sam would give Soul the fake idol when Soul was the main person voting out Sierra last time, and the beginning of the episode starts with Sam being like, I'm on an anti-lover train. But apparently they had this plan. Is that something they could have done? Like, what can Soul, where does it go so wrong for Soul, and what can Soul do here? That's my question, because Soul, I think, was playing a great game and is now out of the game. Yeah.
His hands were tied in that moment. What do you do? Like, when you... In that point, his closest allies who are Teenie, and then honestly, cling on to Teenie and her relationships. Like, Teenie, I'm sorry, but Teenie's relationships are incredible. Like, that would be my last hope. I'd go to someone that has proper agency in the game, social capital. Look, I know her influence hasn't been incredible, but she's still in the ears. She's still the person on the side that's just going along with everything. So it's a hard one. It's so bloody messy, but I probably would have went to Teenie, pulled on her heartstrings, and then just hope for the best.
The issue with Teenie, I want to, like, because Teenie, it's so interesting because Teenie.
I love Teenie. Watch it.
I love Teenie as well, and I'm just like, where is it going wrong for Teenie? Because Teenie never gets their way ever, and I don't think Teenie has a bad social game, but I don't think like any of these people have bad social games. Like, even the people on the bottom, like the Rachels, and like, you know, Rachel's like in almost becoming like, and I think Rachel has a lot of room left to play, and I want to talk about it. She has an idol. She's a smart player. She has been an underdog, but there's like a secret scene where she's like, I just want people to work with me. I feel like I have no agency, and she's kind of getting to like the Jake Owen, like sentient goat landscape, but I think she has a lot more game to play, and I think it's way too early for that. But I don't think she has a bad social game. And I don't think Teenie has a bad social game, but I think Teenie's social game has been, it's only served her defensively. It's been a very protective social game. It's the Genevieves of the mostly Genevieve every time. Like, with allies like Genevieve, who needs enemies? But it's mostly Genevieve being like, you know, I care about Teenie, and I'm going to vote out their main ally, but not Teenie. And so that's the social game of being protected, but not having the agency. Like Teenie, since the very beginning, has not been able to enact what they want. And it's so hard for me because it's like, if I was Teenie, it's like, in a perfect world, you probably want to get ahead of it. Like swipe at someone like a Genevieve who will protect you, but not enough to actually ever give you what you want, and who has like completely diminished your agency and your options. But the thing is, now you don't have the agency and the options to do it. So that's the issue. It's like, because your agency has been diminished, you should make a move. I think this is always the issue with being in the bottom. You should make a move, possibly, to take a hit, but you can't because you don't have the power, and that's the problem, and that is the cycle.
Do you think she's aware that she's quite comfortably in the social group, like in a defensive way, obviously, but as in can we agree that she's kind of untouchable at the moment? Like nobody's really
Teenie?
talking about me.
Teenie's not happy with their position at all. If I know Teenie, which I think I do, I feel like Teenie's like hating this. Like Teenie, like she's like always at the whims of someone else, usually Genevieve. That's a horrible position to be. Like, sure, okay, you like me enough to keep me, but what about when you choose not to?
But I think she's aware that she might not be the butt of everything. Her closest allies might be, but I think she's aware that she has some skin in the game with some people, and that she might be a bit safer compared to her allies. Would you not say?
Well, definitely, but her allies are out the door. That's still a pretty low bar. Like, well, I'm just saying, if Tuku goes last week, which was Teenie's want, this is a whole different ballgame. Then Teenie's in the middle of something really clear here with Lavo and Gata. But now, if anything, she has not wanted to work with the Tukus the whole time, and they have been empowered through every time. They're still intact. So I don't see where Teenie has the agency to help Sol, because I don't think that Teenie has the power and the options right now, because Teenie has been, it's compounded over weeks. Like Teenie has been depowered, never getting their way, and like you have to acquiesce because you don't want to like cause a whole thing, and you don't have the power anyway to do it, so you have to take the shot possibly and be that big, but you don't have the power to take the shot. And now you're like in like a little bit of like survivor jail, just like hoping people don't like choose you as the next thing to kick off the show.
How you take your shot as Teenie moving forward? How you take your shot as Teenie moving forward is approaching the men. In the middle of the night, you approach the men and you say,
what Teenie wants to do.
That's what you do.
Yeah, the failing of the Women's Alliance has like is like a really good indication of where Teenie's game has been, as the main proponent of like never wanting that to happen and losing it every single week. Literally. I think Teenie needs to rebuild some options very, very quickly.
And I think she's closing a lot of doors for herself. I know that they're she really wants this female alliance, and it can come. It just doesn't have to come now. Speak to people that you need votes first, and then once numbers start to crunch down, then make whatever female alliance you want to make. But at the moment, I just feel like it's too early for all those things to be happening, to like sort of close your mind off working with certain people. I don't know.
Well, I don't think that it was closed off. It was more just like, if we have an option, I would rather keep because the thing is, Teenie also got on best with the women. So yes, I'd rather keep the women who I am getting on well with. Sierra, she had a great relationship with, and lost that as an option, as an ally, as a number. So if I were Teenie, and I do think, I think that Teenie's been losing power since, I think Teenie gave away power at the Asia vote. And I think Genevieve has been outplaying great players and someone like a Sol and a Teenie, to the point where now Teenie is very diminished. And now kind of has to start again almost. But I think for Teenie, like if Teenie could be brought into the, smart, self-interested super fan group with Rachel and Andy, who know that Genevieve needs to go at a point, are like working with Genevieve, but are also wary of Genevieve and are going to take the time to like do something against Genevieve. That's the group. So that needs to be the thing. But again, we see them all as connected to Genevieve, as like the nucleus. So it's about getting rid of that and having something on the side of Genevieve against Genevieve at a point. And I think that's the move.
And Genevieve's teeth are so sunken into so many people that it's almost impossible for information to escape her. And we saw that literally.
Yes, exactly.
Like at least, what? Yeah, if plans do get out, they get out. But you know what? At least you know that it's coming back to you regardless. Like that. That's the thing that she should be comfortable with. What she should be worried about is if the information didn't come back to her and then people still talked about it, that means she doesn't have any control. But we can see in this game, in this episode, that she's got all the control. She's getting in everyone's ears and people are coming to her with information, which is the best position you can be in Survivor. It's just a matter of, are you going to maintain this high or are you just going to come crashing down next episode?
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with Genevieve. It's like, yeah, she's way out in front, and that should mean that she's getting taken down, but it requires people who are more connected to her than they are to each other to put that
Yes.
aside, come to each other, be like, this is the thing, and all work together against her. That does happen in the new era. Soul had connections, but again, I think someone like Genevieve was really working on eroding those connections and like painting it on him. So someone has to be very anti-Genevieve and have the social capital more than Genevieve's extreme social capital to pull it off. It's possible, but it's hard, and that's what that's why I'm vouching for Genevieve in being able to protect against that as so much more powerful than people who are trying to do that. But it might happen at a point, but I do think she has, again, more runway on that than most people would. But a few things here, a few questions. So, okay, so going back to Soul. So do we think I kind of like this move with this move with Sam on the fake idol. Do we think, because it ends up being a unanimous vote, they don't split the vote. They were never splitting the vote. This is interesting to me because they did technically at a point, we saw the main numbers be a 6-3, and they weren't splitting. For someone like Genevieve, maybe she thinks it possibly bounces back on like a Carl anyway. Stu becomes a bit of a name, but if Carl can be, I mean, I think that's fine. Maybe she does want to, obviously make a split target on someone like Teenie. Could have been a Sam split target. Maybe it's just too chaotic, a bit too late, a bit too antisocial, a bit too scary when the numbers are this vague. I think it's risky, but I also, admire Jen's very social gameplay that is not going to split as much, but there's no split. So if there's an idol, it is possible, I think, that they shift the vote away from Soul. Maybe to Sam, actually, ironically. But is this the move for Soul to use the fake idol here?
Oh, I don't know if it is. Honestly, why didn't Rachel just play an idol for Soul and get Genevieve out?
That would have been a terrible move. That would have been like, wow. But like, yeah, let's like protect a minority.
I know.
Rachel needs that idol. Rachel's gonna protect herself with that idol one day. Like that's gonna be a great. And I think like if you're Rachel, you haven't had enough, relationship options in the game to this point to protect someone. As much as Soul helped her, like the idol is your best ally, and you just keep that 100%. In your pocket. But a fake idol could at least shift the target from Soul. But I guess maybe it just never panned out. That might be where I go. Rock in the pocket.
You know what? It's so scary planning a fake anything. Like it is, because if you get caught out, that's it. You're absolutely done. So it takes a lot of heart and balls to like go along with a fake plan and then just act like everything's completely fine when you're crapping yourself, because if something goes wrong, you're going home. So I don't blame them if that was just too much for them to handle, because it's a lot. It's actually a lot, and you need to be a great liar in the moment. And at Tribal Council, you are crapping yourself. So I don't blame you.
It was also like very close to Tribal Council when all of this was happening. I do think I was crediting like Genevieve's socialness, but now I'm thinking like with 6 votes, it's not like where all the votes are. Like I think maybe they should have tried to split the vote.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem like that's the style of this season much either. It's very chaotic.
That's not really Genevieve's style.
Yeah.
I think if you're splitting on Sam and Soul, that is pretty good. You are giving a lot of power to like, again, Andy and Rachel to be true swings at that point and just like ruin it on their own reverse plurality vote. But I feel like Genevieve's style is to just blindside, right? Like Genevieve still blindside Soul. Even in amongst it. That's what's crazy to me. Like Soul doesn't play shot in the dark. Like Soul was still blindsided even within all of that. That's a credit Genevieve, and I guess that's the Genevieve way.
Here is an amateur question. Why doesn't Soul just say, hey, shot in the dark, can I play it? Bullshit stuff.
Soul, I think, really should have played a shot in the dark. And I know that it's so easy because, like, I think that like, it's easy from my couch to be like, clearly you were unanimously voted out. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to be like, you probably should have played your shot in the dark. But from Soul's perspective.
Saying that to him,
like saying Teenie, that, hey, trouble. Yeah, I want to talk about Teenie because Teenie told Soul that Genevieve had come up with the anti-Soul plan at Tribal, but then was like, don't vote for Genevieve. And I want to talk about that because should Teenie be saying like, maybe not that, because that's a lot of information. And then Teenie was scared that he would vote for Genevieve. and then that would come back on Teeny. But like maybe Teeny should be like, this is really dicey. I think you should play your shot in the dark. But the thing with Sol is he thinks if it's going to be the original plan, and now like all the names are out there, and Gabe is saying he's voting Kyle, but like he might think it's him, Sam, Teeny, Andy, and Genevieve.
Yeah.
I mean, he's heard that Genevieve was against him. So if he thinks that, but he thinks it might be those 5 against 4, and then he needs his vote. He can't play shot in the dark. Now, 2 weeks ago, I would have said he should do it anyway, and then their 5-4 wins on a 4-3 revote. But as of last week, we know that's not true, and it would have gone back to a 4-4 revote because the revote rules are different. But I still think relying on your numbers when you've heard your name and you know some call is coming from inside the house. I think am I being too harsh to be like, how did he not play a shot in the dark here? Like, how did he trust anyone? I'm confused about it.
Poor God, you're right. I don't know how, but again, it could have been just one of those things in the moment. Like, he seems like he gets scattered very easily. Like, if someone says something to him, you can tell his mind starts to wander off. So honestly, I genuinely think just in the moment, he was just so confused. There's so many conversations happening. He was so focused on just not getting voted out rather than just playing the shot in the dark. So I genuinely think it was just a slip, but who knows? I need to ask him. I'll find out.
Well, there were so many red flags. It's like, the fact that like you can't agree on Sue and Carl is because most people don't care because it's not the vote. I think that's a big one. I think the fact that you don't know where the majority, assuming it was a majority, was coming for you from, where are the votes? Who are the votes coming from?
So many giveaways that something is completely not right. Like if you're at tribal council and you have a set of eyes and you just watch them long enough, it was very obvious. I'm sure it would have been very obvious where it would have been going with the people getting up and speaking, and it says a lot. From our couch, we're all confused where the vote's going because it's all theatrics. But in that moment, when you're there and you're just watching everyone get up and speak, and like for a good 40 minutes, I'm pretty sure you can end up coming to a conclusion, after that 40 minutes.
You should, I would think. Because Teeny literally said to Sol, apparently, Genevieve came up with a plan against you. Who are the 4 votes that he thinks he's attaching to that makes his vote so pivotal?
And not to sort of pivot away just slightly, going back to Rachel. See, this is why Rachel is such a great player, because she played this shot in the dark, but then the second she did, she immediately watched everyone. And that is what you should be doing, especially at a tribal that's so bloody animated and everything's going on. She immediately watched everyone and realized nobody flinched and she was safe. And that's what Sol should have been doing. That's what a lot of the people should have been doing, is just watching them, because I guarantee you one little slip up would have given something away. You just needed to be observant enough. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think it's an indictment on Sol that every other player got wind of it to make it unanimous, and he still didn't know to play a shot in the dark.
Yeah,
like I think that there's enough there that it got so crazy that like everything came out, and Sol still was relying on people who were never with him, let alone at that point, even his closest allies had jumped ship to the unanimous vote. So, I mean, I hate to be too harsh on it, but like it does seem really clear to play it in that situation.
But in saying that, I will say, not to go back to my season, but the Eileen vote off was in my face as well. Like I've spoken to a bunch of people, and I just didn't see that Eileen was getting gunned for when he was right in front of me. It's just in that moment, sometimes you just don't see things. So I'll give all that credit
from the couch. Also, I'm realizing that earlier I was like, you were like, don't vote out your own allies. I'm like, but you did it. I was thinking you voted out Eileen, but you didn't. You were a loyal person. I mischaracterized you. You were very
Honestly,
loyal. I did what everyone on your season did, saying that you voted. No, you were so loyal. I hate myself. That's not what happened.
Thank you with you people. Everyone's just cutting for me.
The fact that you were like, you shouldn't vote out your allies. I'm like, but you did. And you're like, no, I didn't. Oh my God. When is this narrative going to stop? No. Okay. You're right. Yeah, I think should Teeny go to Sol and be like, because Teeny knows that Sol's the vote. I think saying Genevieve was the name at that point was too much information. But should Teeny say, Sol, I don't know what's going on. I do not trust these numbers. Play your shot in the dark. Should Teeny at least give Sol that?
Yes. I'm sorry, Teeny. I love you so much, but if you're gonna cry for Sol, you tell him to at least play shot in the dark.
I agree. I agree. I think like and like I guess the concern is like if everyone's voting Sol on a unanimous revote, Teeny might be an option. I still think Sam, then Kyle, then Teeny, but vote for Kyle. You know, Kyle was meant to be a vote. If like have that be the one vote, just like it's not even that bad.
Why didn't Teeny say something? It's like say play a shot in the dark. Do you genuinely think people just missed that and completely forgot about it?
Maybe
Like,
Teeny thought it was obvious. Maybe Teeny thought that they didn't have to like explicitly tell Sol to do it, and it wasn't looking good. I think that Teeny should be like, Sol, the numbers are not here. Play your shot in the dark, and then I think Teeny should vote for Kyle, which was a plan anyway, and like he'll still probably be in the game, and it's whatever. Like Kyle doesn't seem super vindictive and had been a target and is not working with Teeny. It's fine. And if Sol's shot in the dark hits, then Kyle goes home, and it's not. We don't even take it to a revote, and you have a 16.666% of your number one ally staying. And I think for Teeny, yeah, like even as a shield, you know, like for sure you want Sol in the game. So
yep.
I think that was a miss. I don't know. Yeah.
I will say Teeny's downfall is that she's genuinely happy to be everyone's friend. I think Teeny is too worried about upsetting people or because you can see after every vote she's always explaining herself. She's never really in the mix of like suggesting, like she just wants to be everyone's friend. You can tell, but I think that will be Teeny's downfall. I think Teeny now needs to get aggressive, needs to start coming up with plans, start swiping, like you said. She needs to get in the game.
Yeah. With now extremely diminished capital. That will make that incredibly hard. Tough. I was going to say tough, then I said hard, then I said both. It's going to be tough and hard. And I think Teeny needs to start rebuilding from now because I don't see where the options are. And I think it's a whole new tact with whole new allies, and the coalition needs to start now. We can't keep going this way. It can't just be acquiescing to power, allowing allies to go home, getting in with the group again, hoping defensively that you aren't the target, having your social game protect you. I think it needs to be more building, more active, more offensive. I think this will be tough because I think Teeny starting from pretty much ground zero on that. A couple of questions here.
Yes.
Okay, so Rachel turning on Sol because no good deed goes unpunished, right?
Yes.
During Wiki Month. Do we feel like, because last week Tara and I debated at length, like would Rachel be pissed off at Sol for not cluing her in to the Sierra vote, or would Rachel still be grateful to Sol for saving her once and getting the possible vote of her last week compared to Sierra? Do you feel like Rachel here was like screw Sol, or do you think that Rachel just couldn't save Sol? Like did Rachel want Sol or not?
Yeah, I think she just couldn't save Sol. I think she was at that point where she's like, honestly, I was at the bottom last tribal. I'm just going to go with anything that will help me in the end. And at this point, if I try saving Sol, I'm making myself more known and being this other person that keeps pushing back when I'm already at the bottom. I don't want to be that person. I'll vote Sol. I think that's exactly what happened.
I do agree. I think that's what happened. I'd love to talk about Tuku because this is so interesting to me. I feel like this move is only tenable because Tuku are not united.
Yes.
But I was thinking, can you imagine the game right now if they was doing exactly what they're doing, telling everyone, playing exactly the same way, but in confessional were telling us, like, I don't actually want to get rid of Kyle. I don't care that he voted for me 2 weeks ago. Like, we're actually Tuku strong, and when we get to 8, you're going to hear about it, and we're going to be the majority. I would be like, that is so baller. Like it would be like the Reba 4. Like it would be, or even the Taku 4 in 42 that no one knew was a 4 until they started getting the majority and then had all the power. That would be epic. But then they're telling us in confessional, Sue like really wants Kyle out. And I hate this because I feel like, why do you still care? Kyle could not be more innocuous. The fact that it's like, Kyle, and then you cut to Kyle and he's just being like the most passive, like completely fine player. It's hilarious. I know. So
can I ask, where did this start from? When I actually think it started from like episode 2, that Sue's just
it was when Kyle voted for Sue and they voted out TK.
That's insane to me. Yeah,
so long ago.
That's insane to me. Just let it go. That's gonna, you see, again, she's so laser focused. See, the thing with Sue is, number one, she's laser focused on getting someone out. And number 2, her game is completely tied to another person. Completely. If Gabe is out, then she said it herself, she's going to be lost. She doesn't know. So at the moment, she's in a pretty okay spot, but I think she needs to change something. She needs to shift her target from Kyle. She needs to start working with Kyle maybe. I think genuinely, if I was Sue, yeah, go to Kyle. Let's put this bad blood behind us or whatever. I'm done with this. Let's actually work together now. People won't expect that. Done.
Kyle would be like, "What bad blood?"
Yeah.
Kyle would be like, "What?" It's so one-sided. Like I feel
Yeah.
like Sue would be like, "Kyle, I forgive you." He'd be like, "When were you
Okay.
mad at me? Like what for what?
Poor
Who is
Kyle.
PK? What do we? I don't even remember what you're talking about."
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, poor thing. But you're right. It could have been something really, really great. But yeah, Sue's just that player that just can't. I don't think she would be able to shake it. To be honest, she would.
Yeah.
She wants that. She wants
We
Kyle.
we got a question in the question thread, and someone was like, if Tuku get the majority, or I guess a plurality of 8 even, will you podcasters start giving them credit? I'm like, I would give them so much credit if that was what they were doing, like if that's what they were trying to get to, but they're not a Tuku 4. They keep telling, if they were in confessional, like, yeah, we're working together and everyone thinks that we have this fracture, that would be incredible. Like, or even like Caroline is like really like, we have to get rid of Carl because he's an immunity threat. Carl is not a threat to anyone. Like, you can get rid of Carl. I bet you can outplay Carl at a point.
Yes.
Whenever he loses. Again, in the 3 immunity challenges that he won, one was against half the group, one he came third, and one Sue might have won. But the women was on a different thing. So all of them have at least a little bit of an asterisk. I do think that Carl is great at challenges. He clearly did well in this challenge as well. But like, he'll lose and you'll get rid of him. It's fine. It's great to paint as a target. Like for Caroline to use that as a shield and for it to like, oh, we're getting rid of one of the Tukus. Okay, at that point, let it be Kyle. But to push it on Kyle out of the group and use up your target of your own volition, I'm not into that. Like Tuku, like they really need to get over the Kyle thing because he's just could not be a more chill guy.
I love him. He's so much fun to watch because he's literally just in Survivor. Everyone's crapping themselves and getting paranoid. He's like the same vibes as Jaden was, just chill. He's just chill on the island and just doing his thing. And I feel like, Sue just needs to let it go. There's a lot, other people that we be focusing on, but.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I do think that Sue is in a good position in the game. That's why I think for Sam, it's a mistake to try go after Sue, to be like, well, Sue's very well insulated. If we get rid of Sue, then we'll break up the whole game. It's like, that's why that's hard to do 10 minutes before when you don't have the numbers. But like, Sue does have Gabe and Caroline, and I think that Sam was crediting her closeness with, obviously, Genevieve. We've seen that now. Yeah. With Rachel even and Andy is what Sam says. But I think my issue is in Sue's approach, like the emotionality of still caring about Kyle, and even the way that, I think that's so underreported of what a good part of this move it was for Genevieve to actively erode Soul's connections when Soul was well connected, and that's what made him a threat. To go to Stu and be like, he's coming for Gabe. Like, we see Teeny and Soul together come for Gabe. Genevieve puts it all on Soul and really like amps up what a threat that he and Teeny are going to ping pong between the other alliances, like really does well with that. For someone like emotional like Stu, I think that works very well. And then I criticize Sue for that because I think that obviously Gabe is important to her and that should be something that she should factor in because Gabe is, again, critical to her game. But I also think that Sue is someone who will be reactionary and 100%. It's not like thinking through, okay, but then can I work with Soul on that or should I talk to Soul? I'm not even saying that that's what she should do. I just think that it also vibes with like what we've seen of her game the whole time, which is somewhat more emotional, somewhat more reactionary, and then it's going to work like a charm when you come to her with that name. And like the thing is, Soul could have even not said Gabe, and I think it would work. Like and Genevieve did hit on something real, and I do think that it's something Sue should actually be concerned about. But I also think that Genevieve, at that point, is in a position where she can manipulate Sue very, very well on information that probably doesn't even need to be true.
I think genuinely, like I've been watching Genevieve and how the way she's just delivering everything is just phenomenal. The way she is dealing with it all in her cut. And you know what I will say? That is a very common thing between what I've seen between, now that you've mentioned that Kirby and Genevieve, it's their calm nature. That's what it is. It's the calm nature of a player to be able to have certain conversations in stressful situations like a scramble where everyone is running around. You want to be that calm nature that people come to. And I feel like those are the vibes she gives off, where it's almost like safe. It's not, okay, what are we doing? It's, what are we doing? What's the go? Yeah, it's a lot more calm. It feels a lot safer, and I feel like that's what she has, and she's fantastic at delivering it. It's just a matter of seeing how she goes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Someone else that I want to talk about in that is Gabe. Something really interesting, and I want to bring
yeah.
this up. I have the Survivor Fact Checker confessional stats here because we are on YouTube. Haven't said that yet, but some of this really surprised me. Like Gabe.
What?
Do you think Gabe had that many confessionals? Because I didn't.
No,
Yeah, Gabe
I
has
feel like
44 confessionals, as much as Andy. That's really surprising to me. I feel like Andy is such a huge storyteller. Sam has the
yeah.
most, by the way.
Oh my god.
These confessional charts were really surprising to me. And I know we put more stock in the confessional charts in US Survivor compared to Australian Survivor because
Yeah.
there's so much other material. There's match chats, there's more tribal council, there's more kind of in Australian Survivor. And I do think we have a good sense of everyone in this season, but just the confessional charts, I wanted to bring them up being here on YouTube. But like Teeny having 38, Teeny having 6 fewer than Gabe to me, that's really surprising to me.
Yeah, I feel like I know Teeny way more than Gabe.
Yeah. Do you think it's because Gabe as a character is a bit more one note on like kind of the big game type of heel type player he's trying to be, and Teeny's been a bit more multi-dimensional? But I'm really surprised. And Genevieve obviously on 30, but we know that she had a a really low start to the confessionals. But even with that, like even factoring that in, I mean, Gabe has 11 in the first episode, so I guess that is a lot. But still, I would think that Genevieve has really like come out of the blocks to make it up since then, and she's still pretty low on 30 there. Sue on 28, Carl on 24, and then Caroline on 21. I was really surprised that Andy wasn't the most, Sam's the most, that Gabe had that many, that Genevieve was still as low as she is, and that Teeny was at 38 there. I would have put Teeny as a top narrator. So I wanted to put the charts out there.
I didn't realize Gabe was actually that high.
Yes. That's shocking to me.
It's very shocking to me. I honestly I feel like I've even seen Sue talk more in confessionals.
Yes. I'm telling you, that's really surprising to me. I guess it's because Gabe had 11 in the first episode, and that is a lot. And Sam's also like said 16 in episode 2, a lot of idol stuff, 11 in this last episode. So when it's like not as consistent, I think that's it. Like if you were to take away even just that 11, it bumps him down. But I still think that that's surprising to me. But I do want to credit Gabe. As I wanted to talk about Gabe because I think that Gabe is really pivotal. Obviously, the way they talk about Gabe as like the leader of Tuku who can get all the numbers together is important. But then I also just think I think one of the things that Soul fell to, other than being like outplayed by a really strong player in Genevieve, but I think one of the things Soul fell to is how much people did not want Gabe to be a target. And even if Gabe doesn't win immunity here, I don't think he goes. I think Sue obviously hates that Genevieve wants to work with Gabe, doesn't like that. It was easy to rally people against Soul, even with his social capital, because he had targeted Gabe, and so many people didn't like that. And I really feel like I need to credit Gabe on that in his many confessionals.
100%. I agree. I think Gabe is really good at threat management as well. I think he's got his he knows how to sort of maneuver around some things, and I've said this as well in previous episodes. The way that he is choosing his align, like even from the beginning, that he just chose Sue from the beginning to sort of get in with them slowly and to invest in that relationship. And we've seen how much that has helped and flourished him. He seems like he's got a good read of everyone around him. It's just a matter of executing it right again. But yeah, he's in a very, very good position. I completely agree with you. The fact that people aren't like, everybody does want to work with him and sort of wants to shift their target on someone else, that says a lot about what he's doing behind the scenes and the work back at camp. That is so important. Same thing with Genevieve, how she's putting the work back at camp with these new alliance members that she wouldn't be able to do any of that if she didn't put that work in. And I feel like Gabe is been doing that from the start, but with the same people. If there is anyone on this tribe at the moment that is really, really close with a bunch of other people, it's going to be Gabe. Gabe has Sue and Gabe. Those are the strongest. That's how I see it. Sue and Gabe, I don't think anyone could sort of break Sue away from Gabe. Anyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this spoke well to Gabe's influence and power this episode, I think. And then I guess more just on the episode, I said it was an episode of two halves. For me, what do you think about what have you thought about the twist? I mean, you've watched 2 New Era seasons. I feel like this season is a lot of like spinny wheel into like whatever this week is, and this merge has kind of felt like this new thing. And last week was more like the auction. Are you liking it? Have you gotten used to the new era production decisions yet, or is there no getting used to it?
Can we get this journey out of here? I don't like this. I don't like the whole journey thing. I don't like it at all. Like, even when I remember there was, in this last episode, there was a scene where Gabe was explaining that there's literally 3 divisions going on in this tribe. There's a tribe that's completely can possibly lose their votes going on to the journey. There's a tribe that's on reward, and it's a tribe that, like, there's so many different things happening. People need to just chill out. We don't need a journey. We don't need to lose votes. Stop taking away bloody votes. No more. That's it.
Yes,
So,
I mean, you know how I feel about that.
but I can see this season, like, they have the auction, and I watched it and I'm like, I don't know why they ever took it off. It was so entertaining to watch. I loved that auction. Much better than ours.
Really?
Yeah, I like
Just because
it.
of the toothpaste?
I think so. I'm still
No,
salty. I'm very salty.
you were minty.
I was very minty. That's very true.
Yeah.
But no, I liked it. I loved the auction, but everything else, I just get this journey thing out of here. I'm not on board with that stuff.
Yeah, the 9 hours that I spent at that wedding thinking 4 people could lose their votes, I was like apoplectic. I was not good company. Because I mean, and they've done this before. So yeah, so again, they've done the like break into pairs or even groups of 3 for a challenge, and then it was groups of 3 and 45, and they separated them onto the bottom 3 went to the journey and all played an individual challenge to possibly lose their vote. I think 2 did end up losing their vote, and it was all private. And then the middle group got nothing, and then the top group got a chicken. And then one person won immunity. And yeah, I mean, I'm so grateful, I guess, that it was just one person losing their vote, but I shouldn't have to be grateful for that. That is upsetting.
Yes. Like, and it's at merge as well. People are losing votes at merge. Like,
yeah,
that's crazy to me.
Yeah. As Owen pointed this out in Know-It-Alls, it does make a final 9 vote, which is a very interesting vote permutation. And I do like that it's public. Like, again, all of the things I'm talking about with the plurality potential, and all of that's only possible when, as Genevieve says, you know what numbers and ingredients you're working with. Yes. All those cool votes. When I've seen the other 4-3-2 votes happen, it's because someone like Tony can be like, everyone's voting, right? And we know where they're voting, and that type of knowledge. It used to be, wow, you know where everyone's voting. That's so impressive. Now you have to know where everyone's voting, and if they're even voting. It's another layer of difficulty. And that's so hard for good players to put plans, in action. And Genevieve perfectly talked about that in confessional. I worry production look at it in confessional and are like, yes, you can't make the plan. The monster it's so hard. It's like, no, you want people to be able to do cool plans. I love when people have cool plans.
Yes.
I worry that production don't know what's good and bad about these things. I worry that they think what's interesting about this episode is that like the challenge is so much and it's so hard for them, and they could use their vote and it's so scary. And like what's good about it is that actually they come back knowing the votes and then can create a plan around it. And like, it is interesting and people make real decisions. And then like a big player goes in a blindside, like that's Survivor to me. And I hope I don't know that that's what production know, because it's 7 seasons in and they're still doing it and will do it for the foreseeable future. And I just think like, is anyone enjoying this? Like, who is this for at this point?
And they had to play the dumbest game.
Hey, Jenga was fun, actually. Reverse Jenga was actually pretty fun. Who doesn't love a good game of Jenga?
Where does the reverse come in? Can someone explain that one to me?
Because in Jenga, it's a tower and you have to take things out and have it not fall. Here you had to build it up and had it not fall.
Oh, okay. Because I'm like, but in Jenga, you're stacking things as well.
No, you're not stacking.
You're taking it off. Yeah. Okay.
How good is Jenga, though? Just separately. Not maybe for Survivor, but like, yes, Jenga is really fun. But why is it a part of this? Like, oh my God. I'm so over having to come in and complain, because I love, again, the second half of this episode, I was like invigorated by it. And I think other people, I was more than other people, because other people were like, they were upset about Soul, which is fair. It was a unanimous vote. But like at the end of the day, Genevieve made a big move that's highly debatable. People made interesting decisions and a big player went out. Like, this is Survivor. This is Survivor. But the challenge, and oh my God, like my brother he's intense about like, and the same with me, like he doesn't miss anything. He's like, even I was speaking through the challenge,
All right.
Like, and that's big.
Yeah, the challenges are exhausting to watch. Like they go on for a lot. Like, what just happened to this one thing? just do one thing for 40 minutes and see who wins.
Yeah, and it's also it's like I mean whatever the how homogenous the challenges have been. We've talked about it to death, but like it is what it is. And I mean, what did you think about like the whole twist of them being in pairs and choosing the pairs and like
I don't mind that.
kind of duality of that? Yeah.
I like that. I like anything that doesn't affect the game greatly, but gives people insights of the game moving forward. I like that. So I like the fact that there's pairs. That's not really going to affect much about like positioning in the game or whatever. But it's also going to give people a bit of ideas as to where people's heads are, how people. Again, it's free information. So any chance where people can get free information, where games can evolve, I absolutely love. That doesn't affect vote offs. So yeah, any pairing or anything like that, just to spice things up, I'm completely fine with. I like it.
It was funny that Andy was like, "It's Sam wants to hang out with me," and Sam was like, "I think I can beat Andy." I do think I think that if you knew that you might lose your votes, you probably would have made a different decision. And I can't even blame production because in groups of 3 before they have lost votes, so you could have been wary of it. But like if I'm Sam who ends up playing for his vote, I'm probably less wanting to like carry Andy on my back to beat him. That I might want to just make sure I get through. Someone like Gabe was like, I know I'll be okay with Carl, and then you are risking your vote less if they had known that. But I can't really blame them. I mean, at this point, it's hard to prepare for anything. Like anything can happen in the spinning wheel of the new era. So
I was fine with that.
Yeah, it was definitely 2 halves of the episode for me. Should we get to the chizzy? Should we talk about?
Yes.
Let's do it. Take it away, Jacob Sager-Weinstein and MC Color.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's getting kind of chizzy. 3, 2, 1.
Look at this. Soul was on top of the chizzy charts. Genevieve clocked it and was like, "Nah, I'm taking out my chizzy competition." And now Genevieve is way in the lead, as we'll see. We'll see from people who, very interesting chizzy charts. If you're not watching on YouTube, I will give them points soon. But put these out on Twitter and Blue Sky now, which is a thing as of the last week due to Twitter's rapid decline.
Yeah, everyone's moving from there.
Yeah. Well, we could talk about Blue Sky a little bit, but I did put the chizzy charts out on both platforms, and they're here in the YouTube video. Feras, who are you giving your chizzy points to? I thought this week kind of hard. I felt the 1 point was hard for me, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Okay. So we're doing 3, 2, 1. Is
That's
that what we're doing?
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
3 for Genevieve. Like you can't go any other way. Like I don't know who else I would give it to if it wasn't for Genevieve. 3 for Genevieve. 2 for Rachel. Rachel working with what she has, like going from being at the bottom to slowly gaining some sort of agency in the game. Having that idol as well is also helping her out as well. She's coming back from a pretty hard loss. So 2 to Rachel and 1 to Andy. Where's Andy? Oh, Andy. Yeah, 1 to Andy. I like that Andy is being a bit more open-minded with who he wants to work with, and he is doing what Teeny should be doing, and that's putting his foot down. Same thing with Teeny. Teeny should be putting the foot down and start making moves in order to gain some sort of agency, and that's what Andy's doing. So Andy gets my 1 point.
Okay, well, I actually did. I'm gonna put Rachel in. She was someone I was considering for the 1 point. I'm putting more maybe in an honorable mention just for like having. Again, I don't blame her for Sam, and I think having the relationships and being brought in is good. I wanted to say about Rachel. Rachel to me is in this like archetype of underdogs with. To this point, I haven't seen the power, but I think that it could come, and I know she has the tools, obviously, with an idol and the capacity, I think, to use it. But I feel like Rachel, to me, falls into like she really reminds me of like Michelle Fitzgerald in season 40, and that is because I felt like Michelle played a really great underdog game, and I think that Rachel has the capacity for that. And I feel like what Rachel does, and I might even compare her to like, especially if she can use it like a Wentworth in Cambodia, or even Eileen in your season, which is what Rachel will maximize her opportunities to 150%. So like taking the rice or gauging, and I love that we got the confirmation, like gauging the reaction on the shot in the dark, Rachel,
Yes.
every opportunity that Rachel gets, she will maximize. So it's like overthought capacity, which as an overthinker, I really appreciate. But her, as an underdog, her opportunities, I think, have been very limited. When she gets the opportunity, she will, play it to its extremes. But I think she's had limited, and she knows that. Like, she's in the secret scenes, like, are you guys going to stop playing with me yet? Or like, what am I doing with that? But I think that Rachel would have a great story at the end as an underdog who has like big visible moves, like leaving tribal council, still has an idol to play with, can, credit the shot in the dark, even something really public like the rice thing. It's all very tangible and easy to talk about and big, but it's limited in how much she's been able to do. So that's just where I see her. I thought about her maybe as an honorable mention. But yeah, I'm giving 3 points to Genevieve, which will put her on the top of the Chizzy charts now at 21. There's no other way to go with this for me. It's easily Genevieve. And I think, like, will Genevieve win? Like, again, I think she's going to lose at Fire. But should Genevieve win the Chizzy? Yes. Like, this is a proud tradition of the big players who control everything and don't necessarily win in the new era. And she would be in the long lines of the Omas, the Jessies. There's so many players that I think, even like, well, Carson was more with Tika, but yeah, Ricard, some of the big players. And I think that's where she'll be. I don't think she'll win due to her early edit. And because I think that the Fire thing has really been creeping up on us from the preseason, but I think she's playing a phenomenal game and I think she should win the Chizzy. And I think that would feel right. And it's great that she's leading it by a lot now with Soul out of it. But I'm going to give 2 points to Gabe. Because of Gabe's influence. And I think that this is like, it is a Tuku win, but then I'm like not loving the anti-Carl sentiment on Tuku. That's like such a kind of, unprompted cell phone. So, hard for me to kind of credit Sue in that. I did think about Sue from a positioning standpoint, but I just hate the Carl stuff so much.
Yeah.
So I'm giving 2 to Gabe, and then I'm giving 1 to Andy, who was approached in both plans. I think is a big thing. Was he as much the swing? I don't think as much. I think it's really Genevieve's power. Because we got questions like, is this, unanimous vote all Genevieve? Like, it really is a lot of Genevieve then leading Tuku to it. That is, as we know, the plurality into the majority. It's her connections. And again, even when it goes absolutely pear-shaped, it just comes back to her. Like, I really credit for Genevieve just sticking with it, not getting scared, because in the moment I'm like, she does not need to go back on this. She has the numbers. It's still fine. Don't renege. And she never was, right? It was all noise and just blindsiding Soul, keeping with it, acting so well, like having the information come back to her and then having to like complete the move in the chaos. So good. Anyway, that's Genevieve. 2 to Gabe, 1 to Andy, who was, approached first. And I still think, is hanging on to Genevieve. And like for both Andy and Rachel, there's points in the fact that they had that conversation at the beginning of the episode and are thinking of working together. I think that's really good. I don't go against any of Andy's decisions as much as he could have them as a quasi swing to a degree. Just being brought in, I think is really good. So let's see what the charts are. If I can do it on the fly. Genevieve on 21 and Soul left on 18. That leaves now Andy's next and Sam on 11. 10 points under Genevieve right now as still active players in the game. Teeny 9, Sue 9, Caroline 7, Rachel up to 6, Gabe up to 4, Carl on 3, and Tiana and Asia left on 1. I think that's where we're at. So Genevieve might be running away with it, but who knows? Maybe they snipe her next week. Like last week I was like, Soul got 6 points. He was doing so well and he got sniped.
Yeah.
So I don't, anything's possible.
I'm telling you, I'll be so surprised if Genevieve's name is not mentioned next episode.
That would be a credit to her.
Yeah, of course it would be.
It would be a huge credit.
Huge social game as well, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think, again, that's Genevieve. Every single move Genevieve makes, there's like a multi-part move. It's about making the move, making connections as you make the move, as we saw her do with Tuku, with Rachel, with Andy, and then having those connections actually protect you, which is hard in the new era, and having other people just have so much less capital and agency than you, that they can't come against you, and then having other names out there. I think the fact that we still have the Sams, the Carls, possibly the Gabes, although I think that's due to his connections a bit harder. But like, now maybe we take a bit of a step back. We get out the easy names. Take out a Carl, take out a Sam. Let's really run it down. Or even if you can maybe push out some of the sneakier threats that she thought and keep Carl and Sam. But then at a point you need to start using up those shields, and that will kind of, propel her to the end game, I think.
Genevieve needs to find her core, and then Genevieve needs to then stay quiet for that whole day and let everyone else come up with a plan and stick to her call. That is the best way to manage her threat moving forward. If Genevieve starts throwing another person's name out, then Genevieve is in trouble. Genevieve will now be known as the person that just comes up with the plans. Okay. And as well as Genevieve doesn't actually know who's really like going to be sticking with her, because you know why? Everyone voted for Sol. So we don't know who's Genevieve's closest person or not. We just don't know if that just suited their game to vote Sol out or because they want to work with Genevieve. So that's the tricky part now, having to navigate, okay, who was actually down to work with me and who was just down to vote for Sol. And she needs to distinguish those two.
Yeah, and who's also working with me, but then won't when push comes to shove. And I think that that's the issue, that she's investing a lot in relationships that are good relationships, but they're savvy players, the Andys, the Rachels. I mean, Teeny has not been invested in, but, you know, these are the players who I think can be all like, you know, at a point, should we all get Genevieve? Will they have the capital to do it? Will other people want to do it? That's the question. But again, Genevieve can do more than most. And like, not that this is a reason to do the move. It's definitely not. But like, Genevieve can afford to have fun. Like, Genevieve can afford to go out and like play a big fun Survivor game where you look back and you're like, that, like, even like the way she was like, I can't believe that worked. Like, it's not a reason to do it, and I wouldn't like that. But like, from a personal perspective, like, if those are the two options for Genevieve, she can afford more than most people to have a lot of fun with it. And we're having fun with it, right?
Hell yeah, the best.
Loving you as Survivor. This was so fun, Feras. Thank you for talking it through with me.
Nah, anytime. Honestly, this genuinely, like, I was a bit behind a couple of days ago, and I'm like, nah, I need to watch all these episodes. And then I watched it, and I'm like, oh, what the hell have I been missing out on? Because I hate when I miss out when it's live and everyone's tweeting and talking crap. So now I'm glad I'm up to date, and this season has been absolutely amazing. I'm loving this cast. I will be happy with anyone winning at this point, but I've got my favorites. So yeah.
Yeah, well, tweeting, and as we said, blue sky skeeting is, I think, what they're saying. I'm on Blue Sky now, at Shannon Gates, same as always. Twitter, Instagram, tweeting about the episodes. Feras, where can the people find you and what you're doing?
You can find me, honestly, everywhere. Just type my full name, Feras Basal, and you find me on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, everywhere else.
You're on Blue Sky? Am I following you? I tried to find you for the question thread, and I couldn't find you. When did you make your Blue Sky?
Like 2 days ago.
Oh, I couldn't find you.
Oh, really?
I tried for the question thread. I looked at. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to follow you now.
It's my full name. Yeah. I posted a link on my Twitter.
Oh, I missed that.
But yeah, you can find me anywhere. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, Shannon. That was awesome. I love this. I love chatting all things Survivor with you.
It's
so much fun.
Yes, thank you for indulging my plurality votes and my. Or you should have. Last week I had a bit of a thing with the revote rules being different. In Australian Survivor, and I think I know the answer to this. Do you guys have like a rule book? Do you know the rules, or are you just assuming the rules at any given time? Because you didn't really know that it was even rocks, right?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, I can explain this. There is no rule book. Look, there's only a rule book in terms of I can't just steal someone's idol from their bag. Like, I can't be looking through their bags. But there isn't a clear, okay, this is what rocks means. This is X, Y, Z. There isn't anything like that. No.
Should I write that and give it to people? But I don't know. When they don't know, this is the thing. Is there's nothing to. I was wrong until last week on what the revote rules were, so I can't do that. They should do that.
Wait, what were the revote? What are the revote vote rules? I feel like I'm missing something now.
Yes, last week, it's a whole thing. It was 20 minutes of last week. But last week, they said that at a 2-person revote, usually you don't revote because you can only vote for each other. So you just cancel each other out. But because Sam didn't have a vote, Sierra voted. But at 3-person revotes in the past, they haven't revoted, which makes no sense. And then I spiraled. It seems silly now. Actually, no, it doesn't. It was actually very valuable. It was very valid. Again, it even changes things now because again, I would have said this week, like, Sol might as well play a shot in the dark because at a 5-4, then he and the target both won't revote as I thought, and then his side on the 5-4 will win on a 4-3. But no, the other target would vote because he doesn't have a vote, so it would be a 4-4. It changes everything, and I'm so vindicated in that.
Yeah, look, all I know is they definitely didn't give me a rundown of what are the possibilities that could happen if XYZ happened. So that's all I know with Australian Survivor. I didn't even know what bloody rocks were until it happened.
And you still won, right? So how much does any of this stuff matter?
does not matter. It really
The
doesn't.
fact that I'm like, why are they all going to rocks? And everyone was like, the what now? The what? What rocks? Yeah.
Oh God, so good.
It's concerning, no. But this has been really fun, Feras. Thank you for catching up for us
Thank
and
you
being
so
a
much.
fairly good student. And by the time we see you next time, you'll have seen every US Survivor season. I'm excited about it.
I promise you I will. Thank you
Why
so
would
much.
you like this is a Feras promise? But that's not right either because you were very loyal.
I'm telling you, I'm going to go live in about. I'm making this announcement. When I have the time, I will go live and I will watch one episode every night. I will hold
Love
myself.
it. Everyone,
How many
please hold
episodes is
Feras
it?
accountable. Please.
How many episodes is it?
Like 13, 14, similar to this.
Oh, what was that here?
It's
I'm
nothing.
thinking it's like 24. Like it's okay.
No,
Yeah, we're good.
nothing. It's 40 minutes, not even 60.
Oh, I'll do it tonight.
I know you literally could, and this is what I'm saying. No, okay, Feras, holding you to it. So much accountability. Truly, you will never hear the end of it from me if you don't. But this was so much fun. Thank you so much, Feras. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you to our listeners. And next week, I forgot to say, next week, B&B collab with Mike and Liana, and that's what will be happening on Survivor Global. But thank you all for listening, and I will see you next week. Bye.